I walked into my room expecting to boot up my rig for a long night of grinding on Apex Legends with my best friend Tyler, but when I opened the door, I stopped cold. My desk was empty. Not just the PC, everything, the monitor, headset, and keyboard, are gone. Like someone had vacuumed my entire digital life right off the face of the earth. My first thought? Burglary. I raced through the house, panicked. But the TV was still there. The jewelry box in Mom's room? Untouched. I flew down the stairs and found my parents sitting on the couch like it was just another Tuesday evening. Calm, smiling, casual. "Where's my computer?" I asked, already fearing the answer. Dad didn't even look up from his phone. Mom set her mug down like she was about to break some thrilling gossip. "Oh, that? We sold it." I blinked. "You did what?" She said it again, slower this time, like I was the one not understanding. "We sold it. Your sister needed things for her senior gala, and while your computer wasn't being used that much." My heart dropped. It cost $3,600. That PC wasn't just for gaming. I built it from scratch. It's my job. I use it for freelance gigs. Dad waved his hand like he was shooing away a fly. "Ty, come on. That thing was overkill. You need to be more flexible. Family comes first." "Funny," I said, my voice shaking, "because it sure feels like family means whatever Tiffany wants, and I just have to eat it." Mom's expression hardened. "Watch your tone. Your sister's preparing for something important. You're a young man. You'll bounce back." They sold my dream machine, my years of saving, building, upgrading, for a dress and heels. Stormed out, fingers trembling as I texted Tyler. They sold my PC without asking. He called me immediately. "Dude, that's messed up. You moving out?" I didn't answer. Not yet. But my blood boiled. That night, as Tiffany paraded around in a glittering designer dress she'd only worn once, I sat in the dark with my old busted laptop, trying to meet a client deadline. The fan wheezed like a dying cat. And for the first time in my life, I realized something. This wasn't home anymore. I wasn't just pissed off. I was done. They thought they could sell off my hard work like it meant nothing. What I did do next, it turned their world upside down. My name's Tyler, I'm 22, and for as long as I can remember, computers have been my safe space, not just for gaming, but for building, fixing, and upgrading. That's how I breathe. I've always said that some people paint, others play guitar. I build rigs. Growing up, we weren't poor, but we weren't exactly rolling in money either. My dad worked maintenance for a school district. My mom did admin at a dental office. We lived in a 2-story suburban house in Arizona with beige carpets, plastic blinds, and a garage we never parked in. It was stuffed with Tiffany's seasonal decorations. Tiffany, my little sister, 4 years younger, blindingly confident, effortlessly popular. From dance recitals to homecoming queen nominations, she was always the star. And my parents, they orbited around her like loyal moons. Me? I was the quiet one, the tech guy. I didn't make waves, and honestly, I didn't want to. I kept my head down, got decent grades, and spent weekends fixing busted Chromebooks or modding Skyrim until 3 a.m. When I turned 16, I started working part-time at a tech repair shop. Minimum wage, but I saved every cent. When friends blew their paychecks on shoes or takeout, I bought a GPU off Craigslist. I built my first working PC at 17, Frankenstein from mismatched parts and duct-taped ingenuity, and I was hooked. By college, I'd upgraded to a sleek, powerful custom rig I called the Fortress. She had a liquid-cooled Ryzen 9, dual SSDs, and an RTX 3080 I scored during a brief dip in scalper prices. It took me 3 years to put her together, piece by piece. Every component had a story. A birthday, a freelance paycheck, a Christmas gift. This wasn't just a machine, it was a monument to persistence, to patience, to build something beautiful with your bare hands when no one else believes in what you're doing. I used the Fortress not just for play, but for work. I did freelance design, logos, Twitch overlays, YouTube, thumbnails. It started as a side hustle, but over time it became real income. I even helped a small indie dev design the UI for their mobile game. That money helped me buy groceries when my parents forgot to refill my meal card one semester, but they never took it seriously. You spend too much time in front of a screen, Mom would say. You're isolating yourself, Dad would grumble. Meanwhile, they drop thousands on Tiffany's cheerleading trips, designer bags, and college prep camps that were basically just overpriced vacation workshop. Still, I didn't complain, not really. I figured stay quiet, stay out of the way, build your future. Tiffany got the spotlight. I got my PC, it seemed fair enough, until they took that from me too. What hurt the most wasn't the money or the loss of gear. It was the message, you don't matter as much. And I'd heard that message before every time Tiffany got new shoes while I patched mine. Every time my birthday cake was store-bought while hers had gold leaf. Every time they forgot to invite me to dinner out because Tiff needed some quality time. I didn't grow up jealous, I just got used to being invisible. But you can only ignore it for so long before something cracks. And when they sold my fortress for a few pieces of glitter fabric and a night of applause, that crack split wide open. It started with silence. The kind of silence that wraps around you like a wet blanket. Heavy, uncomfortable, suffocating. I had just come back from hanging out with Tyler, feeling pumped after an afternoon of planning our next tournament run. We'd brainstormed tactics, laughed over greasy burgers, and talked about gear upgrades like kids in a candy store. But when I got home and walked into my room, that buzz of excitement vanished. My desk was bare, gone. Everything, my dual monitor setup, headset, custom mechanical keyboard, even my chair. I stood frozen at the threshold, blinking like I'd walked into the wrong dimension. Maybe Dad needed to move stuff. Maybe there was a leak, a prank. But as I looked around, the cords were missing, not unplugged, gone. My cable sleeves, power strip, even the RGB lights I'd spent hours installing, nothing was left. I bolted down the stairs, heart in my throat. They were in the living room, watching a sitcom and sipping drinks, laughing. "Where's my computer?" I asked, my voice louder than I intended. Mom glanced up, unfazed. "Oh, that? We sold it." My stomach dropped. Ugh. Dad muted the TV like I'd interrupted a minor inconvenience. "Your sister had an important event coming up. She needed a whole new look. We didn't have extra cash, so we made a decision." I just stared. "You sold my piece." Mom sighed as if I was making a scene. "You barely use it for anything serious, Tyler. And Tiffany's gala is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. You'll understand when you're older." "I use that computer for work," I snapped. "Freelance, deadlines, clients. You think it's just a toy?" Dad waved me off. "You play games? I design, I edit, I earn money with that rig. That machine took me 3 years to build. Every single part bought with my own money." Mom's voice sharpened. "Watch your tone. We're your parents. Everything in this house technically belongs to us." That did it. Something cracked, something deep. "That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works," I said, nearly shouting now. "I paid for every piece of that setup. You don't get to sell my property like it's some secondhand couch." Dad stood up, puffing his chest. "You live under our roof. You don't like how we run things? There's the door." I felt dizzy. Betrayed didn't even cover it. They weren't just dismissing me, they were erasing me. I stormed upstairs, fists clenched, and slammed my bedroom door shut, which now echoed louder in the empty room. My hands shook as I grabbed my phone and texted Tyler. "They sold my piece." He replied instantly. Dude, what? They didn't even ask. "Tell me you're moving out." I wanted to scream. I wanted to punch something. I wanted to believe it was a nightmare, but it wasn't over. Later that night, I found Tiffany in her room trying on a glittery silver dress in front of the mirror. Her room was lit like a boutique showroom, shoes everywhere, makeup spread across her vanity, shopping bags piled up like a fashion magazine exploded. I leaned against her doorway. You know where that dress came from? She glanced over, flipping her hair. Why do you look like someone died? They sold my computer, my $3,600 zero cents rig, to buy you this crap. She blinked, then turned back to the mirror. Seriously? That was all yours? Yeah, years of saving, building, upgrading, gone. So you could sparkle for one night. She shrugged. It's just a computer, Ty. You're always buried in that thing anyway. I took a step in. Do you even care? Or is this just another day of getting whatever you want? Tiffany turned, folding her arms. Don't blame me for your overreaction. I didn't tell them to sell it. You didn't have to. You planted the idea and let them run with it. She rolled her eyes. God, you're so dramatic. I just mentioned you didn't use it as much lately. That's all. They made the decision. You knew exactly what you were doing? She smirked. So what? I needed a dress. You needed a break. Everybody wins. I stood there, stunned. This wasn't ignorance. This was a calculation. She twisted things. She always had, and somehow my parents always played along like she was the second coming of royalty. I walked out, my jaw clenched so hard I could feel my teeth grind. In the hallway, I stopped and looked at the family photo hanging on the wall, us at Disneyland 5 years ago. Even then, Tiffany stood in the middle, grinning like a celebrity, while I stood half a step behind, holding the camera bag. I never really fit in that frame. That night, I sat on the floor of my empty room, staring at the faded spot on my desk where the fortress used to sit. They didn't just sell my piece. They sold my trust. They sold the proof that I mattered. And I was done pretending like I didn't see it. The days that followed felt like a slow-motion car crash I couldn't look away from. No one apologized. No one even brought it up again. It was like my entire gaming setup, my freelance workstation, they had just evaporated. My parents went on with their routines, like selling my PC was equivalent to recycling an old toaster. Meanwhile, Tiffany basked in the glow of attention. Photo shoots in the backyard, TikToks in the living room, her dress, iconic according to her latest caption. Her gala makeup tutorial, sponsored, apparently, by one of Mom's friends who worked at a local salon. And me? I was stuck using my old high school laptop, the one that whirred like a dying vacuum cleaner and froze every 15 minutes. I missed 3 freelance deadlines that week because the thing couldn't handle my design programs. 2 clients dropped me. When I tried to explain to my dad that this was affecting my income, he scoffed. You were never making real money anyway. Time to get a proper job. A proper job? I asked, like working the front desk at a gym while Tiffany plays dress up on Instagram? He didn't answer. I started spending more time in my room, headphones on, trying to drown out the sound of Tiffany's music and my parents' mindless TV chatter. I barely spoke to anyone, except Tyler. He checked in daily, still hanging in. Barely, laptop's cooking my legs, and I'm this close to losing my last gig. Dude, that's brutal. You should sue them or something. I laughed at that. Sue my parents? What kind of sitcom-level chaos would that be? But as crazy as it sounded, the idea started to fester. I began pulling out receipts, emails, PayPal logs, screenshots of my payments from freelance gigs, photos of me building the PC, each step documented and timestamped. I even had footage of me unboxing the GPU and shouting like a kid on Christmas morning. This wasn't just sentiment, it was proof. It was mine. And then the final straw came at dinner. I hadn't spoken to any of them for 2 full days, just grunts and nods when necessary. But that night, Mom insisted we eat as a family. Tiffany had just come back from her gala, beaming, her phone filled with selfies and glittery group shots. She was going on about how a local news outlet took her picture. They said I stood out. My dress was the perfect blend of modern and elegant. I might have even caught the eye of a casting scout. That's great, honey, Mom said. All worth it, see? And then she looked at me. Tyler, maybe this will inspire you to focus on something more practical. Tiffany's thinking about launching her brand now. She's building something real. I dropped my fork. I was building something real, too. Everyone froze. Dad let out a sigh, the here he goes again kind. You're still on about that? Yes, I said louder, because while Tiffany was out being a fashion icon, I was working, supporting myself, and you sold the only thing that made that possible. Mom spoke calmly. You need to stop being so emotional. You're a man. Life throws things at you. You adapt. You didn't throw life at me, I snapped. You threw a grenade into my work and walked away like it was nothing. Tiffany snorted. Oh my God, are you still sulking over a computer? I turned to her. You knew exactly what would happen. You manipulated them, played dumb. You're not stupid, Tiff. You're selfish. Her smile dropped. I didn't tell them to sell it, she said. I just said maybe it wasn't that important, that you were barely using it, that maybe it was worth something. And that was all it took, I said bitterly. Because in this house, your opinion is the gospel. Dad slammed his palm on the table. That's enough. You don't talk to your sister that way. Why not? I said, standing up. She talks about me like I'm some basement-dwelling loser, like my work doesn't count because it doesn't involve sequins or followers. Mom tried to play peacekeeper. Tyler, we didn't mean to hurt you. We just thought Tiffany needed the support more. You thought, I repeated, without asking, without talking to me, you just took? I stormed upstairs, shaking with rage. That night, I couldn't sleep again. Only this time, it wasn't from sadness. It was clarity. They weren't going to change, they weren't going to apologize, and Tiffany? She'd never feel guilt, not when she'd spent her entire life getting her way without consequence. I was done waiting for things to fix themselves. If I wanted respect, I'd have to demand it. And if that meant blowing up the whole foundation of this so-called family, so be it. It's funny how silence can feel louder than any argument. After that dinner, no one spoke to me for days. Not a single word, no questions, no apologies, just nothing. The silence wasn't accidental, it was strategic. A quiet punishment for stepping out of line, for disrupting the carefully curated fantasy that everything in our household was fine. I became a ghost in my own home. I woke up early and ate alone, came back late and stayed out. No one asked where I went, not even Mom, who used to blow up my phone if I missed curfew by 10 minutes back in high school. Now, I could have disappeared entirely and they wouldn't have blinked. Meanwhile, Tiffany flourished. She was glowing, thriving, obnoxiously loud in every room. She held FaceTime calls on speaker, tried on new outfits like she was starring in a personal fashion show, and posted selfies captioned with things like, "Grateful for my amazing support system, less than 3. The same system that had cannibalized mine. I was trying to rebuild my freelance work with that old laptop, but it was like trying to run a marathon with a sprained ankle. The lag, the crashes, the overheating, everything that had once felt effortless now felt impossible. Deadlines were missed, clients lost patience. I watched opportunities slip through my fingers because my parents had decided that my future wasn't worth as much as Tiffany's wardrobe. That laptop finally gave out completely one evening, right in the middle of a Time Sexner project. It froze, sputtered, then died. No fan noise, no blinking lights, just darkness. I stared at the black screen for a long time, and then I laughed. Not a normal laugh, that kind of laugh that cracks right through your chest, because if you don't laugh, you'll scream. I had nothing left, no income, no gear, no respect. I was living in a house where I wasn't seen, wasn't heard, and wasn't valued. And I knew something else too, deep in my bones. If I stayed any longer, I'd lose more than my work. I'd lose myself. That night, I lay in bed, fully dressed, staring at the ceiling. The shadows from the streetlight outside cut across my wall like prison bars. I felt like a prisoner, Not in chains, but in obligation, in fear, in guilt. I thought about leaving. I thought about what it would take: money, a place, a plan. I had none of it. Not anymore. My savings had gone into the fortress, every penny, and they'd sold it for a third of its value to buy dresses, makeup, and a handbag Tiffany would toss after one Instagram story. The injustice of it all swirled inside me like smoke choking my lungs, and yet I felt too tired to cry, too numb to fight. The next morning, I overheard my mom on the phone with a friend, laughing. "Tyler, oh, he's just sulking. He'll grow out of it. Boys take longer to mature." I almost walked into the kitchen and screamed. But I didn't. I just turned and left the house. I walked aimlessly for hours, through neighborhoods I barely recognized, past parks I hadn't visited since childhood. I sat on a cold metal bench, hands shoved in my hoodie, wondering how it had come to this. How do you end up so invisible in the very house you grew up in? I texted Tyler. "I think I hit my breaking point." He called immediately. "Where are you?" he asked. "Are you okay?" I didn't answer. There was a long pause before he spoke again. "Come over, man. Seriously, you don't have to go through this alone." I looked at the pavement, at the cracks in the concrete, at the little weeds poking through, trying to live even in the most broken spaces. "Not yet," I whispered. When I finally went home, it was dark. No one noticed I'd been gone all day. No one asked, no one cared. And that confirmed what I already knew. This house, this family, it wasn't home anymore. The next morning, I woke up with a decision in my bones. Not just a thought, not a maybe, a decision. I was leaving. No more delays, no more hoping for apologies that would never come. No more standing in the shadows while Tiffany soaked up the spotlight and my parents clapped from the front row. I pulled out the worn out folder where I'd stashed everything: receipts for my PC parts, freelance contracts, tax documents, and even a screenshot of my Fiverr profile with 5-star reviews. It was time to stop being passive. Tyler was the first person I called. "I need out," I said before he could even say hello. There was a pause. Then, "You can crash at my place. For real, my mom won't care." "Thanks," I said, "but I think I need my own space. Just me." He didn't argue. He knew me well enough not to. Instead, he said, "Okay, then let's figure it out." That night, we sat at his kitchen table with our laptops open and coffee mugs half full. I had exactly $172, 0 cents in my checking account, not enough for rent anywhere, not even a deposit. But Tyler wasn't just a gamer, he was a grinder, hustler mentality, and he helped me lay out a plan. "Double down on your freelance stuff," he said. "You've already got the experience, you just need momentum." "I can't do much with my laptop right now," I admitted. "Then get your PC back." I looked at him. "You said you have the buyer's info, right? What if you make them an offer?" "I don't have the $1,200 you're sent yet," he said. "But what if we raise it?" I frowned. "Like, GoFundMe?" "No, like streaming. Start telling your story. You'd be surprised how many people will rally around someone who got screwed and decided to take control." That idea hit differently. I'd always streamed, casually, a few viewers here and there, but I'd never shared my story, never opened up about the crap I was dealing with behind the scenes. But maybe now was the time. That night, I borrowed Tyler's gear and went live. The stream started with 5 people, then 10, then 30. I told them everything: the betrayal, the PC, the stolen dream, the need to start over. Comments started flooding in. "Dude, this is wild. I'd riot if my parents did that. You're way more patient than me. Respect." Following just for the comeback story. Don't let them win. When the stream ended, I had 3 small freelance offers in my inbox. Nothing crazy, but enough to get started. And for the first time in weeks, I felt seen. The next day, I called the person who bought my PC. They were polite, even sympathetic. "I'm really sorry this happened to you," the buyer said. "I didn't know the full story. I bought it from your dad and figured it was his." "Would you be willing to sell it back?" I asked. "I'd need the same $1,200 0 cents I paid," they replied. "I've barely used it, still boxed up." I thanked them and said I'd be in touch. Now I had a number, a goal. Tyler helped me set up a temporary workspace at his place. I borrowed a monitor and mouse, and we took turns using his PC. I updated my online portfolio, refreshed my Fiverr gigs, joined Facebook groups and freelance forums, and pitched myself like crazy. Within a week, I had secured $600 0 cents worth of gigs, enough to make me believe this wasn't just a pipe dream. I worked like a man possessed, 8 hours a day, sometimes more. No distractions, no drama, just me grinding my way back to life. One night, after a particularly long session, Tyler handed me a Red Bull and said, "You look different." Dead tired? No, alive, like you've got fire again. And he was right. I hadn't realized how much I dulled myself down to fit in that house, how much of my personality I'd buried just to avoid conflict. Now, for the first time, I was doing things on my terms. I was choosing myself. It wasn't easy. It wasn't glamorous. I ate more ramen than I care to admit and slept on an air mattress for 2 weeks. But every day I woke up knowing one thing: as moving forward on my own. 3 weeks after the meltdown dinner, I stood outside a modest brick apartment complex with a duffel bag slung over one shoulder and a box of cables under my arm. My breath fogged the early morning air as the landlord handed me the keys. "Studio 1B, he said, chewing gum like he hated it. "Third door on the left. No loud music after 10. I nodded. "Got it." The unit was tiny. One room, barely big enough for a bed, a desk, and a microwave on top of a mini fridge. The bathroom door creaked like a horror movie prop. The air smelled faintly of paint and loneliness. But it was mine, and I had earned every square foot. With Tyler's help, I'd raised the full $1,200 through a combination of small gigs, one-off donations from stream viewers, and pure hustle. When I met the original PC buyer in a grocery store parking lot to buy back the fortress, I almost cried seeing the sealed box again. The machine I built with my own hands was coming home. Setting it up in my new apartment was like welcoming back a piece of myself. The RGB glow bathed the wall in soft blues and purples. The fans hummed like a heartbeat. I was back in business, but this time with a new mindset. I rebranded my freelance presence, a new logo, tighter portfolio, and even a slick intro video. I started streaming regularly again, not just gameplay, but behind the scenes of my creative process: logo builds, motion graphics, live Photoshop sessions. The audience grew fast. People weren't just there for the games, they were there for the story, for the comeback. I'd started getting DMs like, "Your grind is inspiring, man. I showed your story to my little brother. He's trying to go freelance too. Don't ever stop. You're proving them wrong every day." Each comment felt like a brick in the foundation I was building. Meanwhile, my family, they noticed I was gone, but not in the way you might expect. At first, it was radio silence. No texts, no missed calls, just silence. Then, a week after I moved, Mom left a voicemail. "You could have told us you were leaving," she said. "We're very disappointed in how you handled this. Family sticks together." Deleted it without finishing. A few days later, Dad tried calling. Then came the guilt text. "Tiffany's upset. You've hurt your mother. We always tried to do what was best for everyone." I didn't reply because deep down I knew it wasn't about missing me. It was about losing control. They hadn't realized what I was quietly becoming: a self-sufficient adult who didn't need them to survive. And That scared them, especially when I stopped being silent. On stream one night, someone asked, "What made you get into freelancing?" I told them, not the cleaned up version, the real one. My family sold my $3,600 0 cents PC without asking, said it was for the greater good. That was the day I realized some people only love you when it's convenient. So I left, and I built this from scratch. That clip went semi-viral, not millions of views, but enough to bring in a surge of new followers. People resonated with it, they related to it, and most importantly, they believed in it. By the end of that month, I was making more than I ever had before. My apartment was still small, but it no longer felt empty. It felt earned. I even had enough saved to start thinking about upgrading my camera and mic. One evening, Tyler and I were eating pizza on my floor because I still didn't own a table, when he said, "So, what now?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, they're going to come knocking sooner or later. What are you going to do?" I leaned back against the wall, taking a bite. "I'm not going back," I said. "They don't get to celebrate me now just because I made it work." He nodded. "Perfect, because they don't deserve front row seats to a show they tried to cancel." And just like that, the balance had shifted. I was no longer the forgotten son, as the one who walked away and built something better. It started with a text. "Your sister's birthday is this weekend. Come home for dinner, just the family. It would mean a lot." Mom. I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wondered if this was it. The olive branch. The long overdue apology wrapped in home-cooked food and fake smiles. But I knew better. This wasn't reconciliation. This was optics. A family dinner, photos for social media, Tiffany's perfect birthday moment with her big brother smiling in the background like everything was fine. I showed the message to Tyler. "Don't do it, man," he said. "It's a setup. They want the happy family pic, not the truth." "I know," I said, "but I'm going." He raised an eyebrow. "Seriously?" I nodded, "But not for them." Saturday came. I wore my best black shirt, clean jeans, no hoodie, no slouch, just quiet confidence. The kind you earn when you've fought through the fire and made it out alive. The house looked the same, but I didn't feel the same. Mom opened the door like she was auditioning for a Hallmark card. "Oh, honey, you made it." I offered a nod, not a hug. "Hey." Inside, the table was set with fine china and scented candles. Tiffany was already seated, phone in hand, snapping selfies like a celebrity at a gala. She looked up when she saw me and smirked. "Well, well, look who decided to rejoin the peasants." I didn't rise to it. Just took my seat and waited. Dinner began with forced chatter. Mom asks about work. Dad commented on gas prices like we were strangers at a bus stop. Tiffany dramatically recounted a near accident she had while shopping for boots. Then, as plates were cleared, Dad raised a glass. "To the family," he said, "through thick and thin." I let the silence sit before I spoke. "Actually," I said, "I'd like to say something." Everyone looked at me. I pulled out a small envelope and set it on the table. "This is for you," I told my parents. Dad frowned. "What is it?" "An invoice," I said calmly, "for the PC you sold." Mom's face paled. "Tyler?" "I never got a real apology," I continued. "You didn't ask. You didn't explain. You took something that didn't belong to you and pretended it was for the greater good." Tiffany rolled her eyes. "Oh my God, are we still on this?" I turned to her. "You manipulated them. You knew exactly what would happen when you planted that seed." "I didn't make them sell it," she snapped. "But you benefited," I said. "You always do, and you never take responsibility for anything." She laughed. "You're just bitter because I make something of myself." "I built a business from nothing," I said, voice steady. "While you posted photos and borrowed outfits, I have clients. I pay my bills. I don't need to be bailed out by mom and dad." She stood up, red-faced. "You think this makes you better than me?" "No," I said, "but it makes me free." Silence. Then Mom chimed in, voice shaky. "This wasn't the time or place, Tyler. No, I said. This was the perfect time because I want everyone here to know I'm done pretending. I'm done playing the forgotten child while you pour everything into Tiffany like she's the family investment. Dad pushed back his chair. You ungrateful? I'm not angry anymore, I cut in. I'm done. There's a difference. Tiffany scoffed. You'll come crawling back eventually. I smiled. I wouldn't bet on it. I stood, grabbed my coat, and headed for the door. But before I left, I turned one last time. You wanted me here tonight for the picture, the show, but I'm not your extra. I'm the main character of my own story now. And you're just a cautionary tale. Then I walked out into the cool night air, feeling lighter than I had in years. The weeks after that dinner passed like chapters in a new book, one I was finally writing on my own terms. No more unexpected texts, no voicemails, no passive-aggressive check-ins from mom. It was like they'd finally realized I wasn't bluffing, that I wasn't coming back, and I didn't miss them. I missed the idea of family sometimes, those rare soft moments that I now knew were conditional. But I didn't miss the guilt, the gaslighting, or the feeling that my worth was measured only by how well I stayed quiet. Instead, I poured myself into the life I was building. My streams grew steadily, viewers showing up not just for gameplay but for real talk, creative sessions, and the occasional Q&A where I spoke candidly about boundaries, family pressure, and the strength it takes to walk away. This support was overwhelming. People sent messages like, I did the same thing, bro, cut off my toxic sister and finally feel free. Watching you gave me the courage to move out, thank you. Your story helped me realize I deserve better too. Some even called me an inspiration. I didn't feel like one. I was just a guy who got fed up and decided to stop waiting for change to come from people who had no intention of changing. But maybe that was the point. One afternoon, I ran into a family friend at the grocery store. Mr. Our old neighbor. He blinked when he saw me. Tyler, heard you moved out. I smiled. Yeah, needed a fresh start. He nodded slowly. Your folks are going through it. I hear they've been asking for help. Something about overextending themselves with expenses? I raised an eyebrow. Really? Guess they thought you'd always be around to chip in. I didn't say anything because I knew it wasn't about money. It was about control. They lost it. And now they were scrambling to hold together an image that was cracking at the edges. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt released. Later that night, I was setting up for a stream when someone in the chat asked, would you ever go back? If they apologized, I paused. For the first time, I didn't feel an instant spike of anger or pain. I just felt clarity. No, I said calmly, because this isn't about apologies. It's about patterns. I don't hate them. I just finally love myself enough to stop letting them treat me like a backup plan. The chat lit up with heart emojis and comments. That night, after I logged off, I wrote a letter, not to send, just to get it out. Dear Mom, Dad, Tiffany, I'm not angry anymore. Not because I've forgotten, but because I've healed. You taught me a lot, mostly by accident. You taught me how damaging it is to stay silent, how important it is to protect your passion, and how crucial it is to walk away when a place stops being home. I hope someday you see the harm you caused. I hope Tiffany learns that manipulation isn't charm. And I hope, above all, that you never treat anyone else the way you treated me. But I'm not waiting around to see it. I'm moving forward, and I'm doing just fine. Tyler. I folded the letter, placed it in a drawer, and turned off the lights. The PC glowed gently behind me, my workstation, my sanctuary, my proof. And as I crawled into bed that night, my bed, in my own space, I realized something powerful. I didn't need anyone's permission to succeed. I didn't need their approval to feel worthy. I was no longer the overlooked son in the background of someone else's story. As the author now, and I was just getting started.